Hey guys, we're back. Sorry about that. We a little.
Well, you know what? We always had this thing when we were on stage and the electronic keyboard. Dave Rosenthal played keys, and every time something went out with Dave, it was always Billy would look at the crowd and say into the microphone, "If you live by technology, you will also die by technology."
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah, well, that was weird.
I've been, it's funny. I've been going live doing this, and welcome back, everybody. Please come on in, put your comments back in. Sorry about the glitch.
Yeah.
No big deal. I've been going live now with Sabian for I don't know what, a year, and after a while, you can't even worry about it anymore. It's just let's just do it. We're talking and stuff happens when not working, so we're good. Okay.
When something that happens, I just think like, wow, I'm really glad I'm not a pilot, and the system went out.
I know. Yeah, I mean, I guess even if you're on stage in front of 20,000 people, they'll, if you make a mistake on the drums in front of 20,000 people, nobody dies. Well, I might out of embarrassment, but other than that, nobody's gonna die. So, all right, let's get back to it. So as you went along and you were coming up with, writing down your stories and you started to, this is obviously long before you got back in touch with Billy, but you got back in touch with the guys and Richie and the fellas, and you started playing again. Yeah. Was that the point where you decided, I think I want to write this. I think I want to put out my story? Because obviously we were working on it when you got back in touch with Billy. That hadn't even happened yet. So you already knew that was the moment when you said, I want to put this out.
Well, I was starting to write, like I said, writing things about my family and stuff like that. And then writing what I remembered about the sessions and stuff like that. Not really thinking about writing a book, because David Fishoff, he does all those fantasy camps. He told me once, he goes, no matter what you write, there's always going to be somebody that's going to get mad at you for writing what they did about you. So I was just writing things down. And then a friend of mine looked at the stuff and he goes, you might have something here. Simon did that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So he said, you might have something here. And he started to put one thing before the other and another one here and another one here. And it started to look like a book to me, So that's when I started to hone the rough edges, because there were some things that I may have said when I was mad, and hopefully with age you start to see things in gray instead of just black and white. Everything's black and white. And I thought to myself, I want to try to see, put myself in the position of Billy when he made those decisions, not me. Like when he got rid of Doug and Russell, yeah, I was like, wow, that's really cold. Why did he? I never asked, why did he do that? I was like, whoa, they're my friends. Mm-hmm. What are you doing? Not asking why he did it. And so when I did that, I understood a lot of things that he did that I thought were like these evil things, but they really weren't. I mean, his name is on the marquee. He's writing a new album that has 14 songs on it. 4 of them have to be great. He plays piano. He sings. At one point during River of Dreams, he was producing the record himself. So it's like that's a lot of weight to be carrying around. And I'm the drummer, and I'm getting pissed off because we're going to go out in April instead of March.
Right. Well, I think that's one thing you made pretty clear in the book, is that it's, you guys developed this really close working relationship. You're having creative input, and you're in the studio, and it was this sort of tight. I don't know if you want to call it a tightrope. Like it functioned as a band, as a musical unit, but he was still the boss, so he was making decisions. And I remember you saying, like, at one point, like, you're watching the other guys get fired, and you're like, I got a family to support. I mean, what am I going to do? I mean, you're sort of stuck.
Right. Well, it was like a band, and I think Billy had a hard time with that too, because he always felt like he was in a band. His dream would be just to play Hammond organ in a band, be in the background playing Hammond organ. Mm-hmm. I don't think he ever intended to be Billy Joel, the guy that was on stage, because there are 2 different Billy Joels. Like the book says, when you read the book, it's like there are 2 Liberty DeVittos. There's the drummer that everybody knows, and then there's the guy that has the real life, and sometimes those intertwine and it gets ugly sometimes. Well, Billy was the same way. Billy, to me, there's the Billy Joel that jumped off the piano and did the flips and wrote those songs and stuff like that. And then there's the Billy Joel that told me, he could be 10 feet out on a boat away from the shore and he's alone and he loves it, So there's two guys in everybody. There's two Joes. I know there's a guy that goes in the pit, that plays the drums that the other musicians around know. Oh yeah, I know Joe Bergamini. And then there's the Joe Bergamini that comes home. You don't know that Joe Bergamini,
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. Everybody has to have. I think that's one of the hardest things when you live a life in the spotlight, and having got a chance to work with some pretty well-known artists through Hudson. It's like, it's hard to keep that aside. And, a lot of people have talked about it. I was wondering if one of the harder things to write about in the book was the situation with Doug. That would seem like.
Yeah, that was tough because, like I said at the end, we all could have done something more for Doug. But I mean, I had the experience of actually listening to his voice on the tape machine when he was talking, and I didn't pick up the phone. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't too long after that tragic event happened. Russell had the same kind of thing. Russell and Doug was really, really close. They went to art school together. Russell used to take tests for Doug, mm-hmm. stuff like that. And of course, there was Billy. Billy made the decision to replace Doug. Because at the time there was a lot going on with music, and Billy needed to stay fresh, so I get it why he wanted to make a change, but you feel guilty after that. Like if he stayed in the band, would he still be alive today? I don't know.
I think the thing that struck me when we were working on that part of the book together is that to have the rug pulled out from under you, and you said it yourself in the book, I was Billy Joel's drummer, and so much of my humanity was invested in that, and then I wasn't, and so like you essentially you were forced to go through the same thing that Doug had to go through, but like Doug didn't make it to the other side, and at the end of the day, it's like I don't know, it's just hard to he didn't make it. At the end of the day, it's sad, but it's, you made it, and it's great that you did,
When you're sitting at your dinner table and your family is around you, that's the real Joe Bergamini. That's the real guy. When you're up there in the pit playing the drums, that's the drummer, Joe Bergamini. Mm-hmm. Doug didn't have that real Doug. He didn't have a relationship with a woman. He had a girlfriend, but no children, loved his dog. And so he didn't have that to fall back on. There was always, no matter what happens, I've got my daughters. I've got, I got a great wife now who just came running down and saved my life.
She did great.
Yeah. So, it's your family that's around you. And, I had that in the beginning, like I talk about with my family growing up. And then there was the bubble of Billy Joel. And when the bubble burst, I had to regroup my family again because, there was many times where it was like my kids were sitting on my feet as I'm trying to get out the door to go on the road. And they're crying, Dad, don't leave, don't leave, don't leave. Yeah. And you feel very selfish doing it, Yeah. So there's a lot of things you do in this business, especially when you're in a band that's as big as Billy was, that now that you look back, you think it was very selfish to do it,
right?
So I'm lucky that I had the family, to fall back on again. My parents, my sister, all that.
Yeah. Well, you hadn't. It's very clear from your story that you had the anchor of it, which I think is a big part of, like you just said, why you were able to come out on the other side, and that's it's such a funny thing because what you say about Doug, it's like one of those things I think people hear about when someone famous talks about that, like it doesn't receive a lot of sympathy, like right. I remember talking to Neil Peart about like why he wouldn't do meet and greets and stuff. And it was like, he was just like, these people don't really know me. Like they think they know me, but they know my work, but they don't know me. And it's weird when they think I'm writing secret messages to them in my lyrics, So he pulled back, but Doug sort of got the the bad end of it. But I also always kind of felt bad for Billy too, because I'm sure Billy carries around some guilt, even if he doesn't express it, about how it
Oh,
ended for Doug. You know.
yeah, we all do. I mean, even in the book, there's that song that I wrote, put the lyrics down, Money or Love. It's like, come on, Doug, which one were you doing this for, money or for love? And it was true. It's like, yeah, there was the money, but then there was the love of doing music. Why did we start playing?
Right.
When you lose that, you might as well, like, you're done,
Yeah.
So,
Well, it's great to see that on the other side of it. So with Richie and Russell, and you guys like rekindled it. So it's great, and you guys are out playing, and you actually said you have a gig coming up, which I'm totally jealous. But you're going to get to play again.
yeah, but I haven't been behind my drum set or a full set of drums like you're sitting in front of since March 15th. So it's like, wow, this is, I'm sure my arms are going to hurt after the night's over.
Oh, I was gonna. So you haven't played at all?
No, not with anybody. No,
Wow.
just in the
Yeah.
basic here. Like playing a few songs, do a few songs. I did
Yeah.
two kind of clinics. Um,
Hmm.
Went over to Billy Amendola's house and played. I did a camp from his house because I didn't have the full set of drums to play to.
Right.
So but yeah, I'm going to get behind my 3 toms up front, 2 floor toms, and
Uh,
see what happens.
I love it. I had pulled this book up before, your old play along drum book, which we hope we'll do something with, and of course the new book with Hudson. So you've it's great that it wound up with Hudson. You've had a long time relationship with Rob, back from the DCI days. So at what point did you because I found out about it after it was sort of like in the works. Rob's like, guess what we're going to do. So I mean, I guess at some point you decided Rob would be the person, Hudson would be the place to put it, and we're glad you did. But
Yeah.
when did you make that? Was that
Well,
based?
when Simon Mills was putting it together for me, he was like reaching out to the publishers that he knew,
Right.
And he was just feeling things out at the time, and then at the same time, Rob emailed me and said, "Hey, Lib, we got these 2 books. Buddy Rich and we got from Vegas. What was his name?
Bobby Morris.
Bobby Morris, right? Great drummer." And he said, "I want to send them to you." And I said, I've got a book too, Rob. I'm writing a book, putting it together. And he goes, "Send it to me. Send it to me." So I sent it to him, and he called me and he left a message. He said, "Hey, Lib, call me back. I want to discuss your book." So I thought, it's going to be one of those like, no, this is not for us, And when he said, "I like this kind of stuff. I really do. I like this." And then Simon brought it to one publishing friend of his and told him about Hudson Music. And the guy said Hudson Music would be perfect because he's a drummer and it's a drum. They do a lot of drum books, so it's the perfect fit. It's almost like when I went with Liberty Drums, it was the perfect fit because it was Liberty Drums and Liberty DeVitto.
Right.
Together. So
Totally.
perfect Hudson Music.
I'm so glad it worked out. Our friend Jeremy Hummel, great Sabian endorser and teacher and drummer, says when he first glanced over the book, he's happy that you went over the song. So for those who don't know, Lib, you go through actually every Billy Joel record that you're on, song by song,
I do.
and not only talk about the drum parts, but sometimes you'll talk about where ideas came from for the song because Billy told you, or where certain sound effect, like the engine on Moving Out, like it was somebody's Doug's car or something.
Yeah.
You guys recorded the car. So if you don't have to be a drummer. It's for anyone who's interested in the music at all. It's certainly, even though Hudson is known for drum books, this is not just for drummers to read. I mean,
no, I did an interview the other day with someone that said, "I picked up the book and I thought it was going to be about drums." It's not just about drums. There's drums in it, and it's about what I did to create those parts, like you said. But the story is about how these people came from Italy, and 2 generations later, one of their offspring plays with one of the top single artists ever.
Yeah.
You know, and it's my road that I traveled down, and there were some roads that were very dark, but I took them anyway. You know, and it was hard coming back from those roads or getting off those roads, but I managed to get off those roads, and how I got off those roads.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, the substance abuse is in there, but it was the love of a woman that got me away from the substance abuse. You know, again, that was love again, like my family, the love thing. You know, I remember I was trying to smoke cigars once, and we were getting these great Havana cigars and all this kind of stuff. And my kids, when they were younger, you know, it was all about like cancer. You know, smoking is going to cause. I remember opening the box once, and every cigar was smashed to bits. You know, because they loved me, they didn't want me to smoke.
Right. Right.
You know, so it's like that. There's a lot of. It starts out with love of a family, and it ends with love of a family.
Yeah.
And like Billy says, we were a family too.
Oh, 100%. There's
closer than our real families.
There's a quote in the book you just reminded me of that struck me, and I don't remember who it's attributed to, where you talk about one of the things, you have this thing, My Drum, where we split it up, where you talk about your relationship with the drums, which I want to come back to. But the quote was something like, "Talent is common. What's rare is the commitment to follow it to the dark places to which it leads."
Right.
Which I thought was a really compelling quote. Like and you know, I know people are like, you know, cry me a river, you're famous and you're making all this money, but you know, you're leaving your family, you're going out, and you're opening yourself up to like this sort of supernatural thing that I think a lot of people, you know, if they got what they wished for, they might realize that sometimes it can lead to real big problems, or, you know, and I think that's what you're showing with that. But I just found that quote so compelling. You know, it's
Erica Jong or something like that said that, a writer. And there's things that happen, like I said, that the music line, the drummer Liberty DeVitto, and the personal life of Liberty DeVitto, when they crisscross, it gets like ugly.
Well, not always.
You know, it's like I remember walking into clubs, and when I was really like abusing myself and stuff, and people would love this band that was playing there. And because I was playing with Billy Joel and Elton John at the time, they would ask me, "What do you think of this band?" And I would say, "They're terrible." You know, and everybody's like, "Well, why don't you lighten up and just have a good time?" Well, I can't have a good time because I'm in this bubble, and leave me alone, you know. Like it was tough, you know, just relating to normal people that just wanted to have fun. You know, it was hard just to have fun. You know, like Billy says in Keeping the Faith, I found I could dance and still be tough. You know, you know, that's a big awakening. You know, to find out, well, I can dance and still look tough. You know.
Yeah. Well, it's great that I mean, like you said, like the way the book has a real catharsis, and I hope people read it and feel that, you know. And I think, you know what, drummers for sure, but even if you're not a drummer, that those My Drum vignettes that go through the book are really great, because you're like we said, it's a love story between you and the drums, like every drummer. But just like any other love story, sometimes you're like, yeah, I don't want to even talk to you today. Get out of my sight. You know, it's like.
Right. And like what I say in the book, like, it's like when I have a fight with my wife, you know, or if I have a bad night on the drum set, and I come home and she goes, "What's the matter?" And I say, "Oh, it was a terrible gig. The bass player was terrible. And the you know, it was just, I played really bad and stuff like that." She could hear about it. But if I have an argument with her, when I'm walking up those stairs, forget that argument. Those drums do not want to know about the argument. Right. They want me to play at my peak all the time. You know, that's what they want. And that's what you got to do. Every time you play, I played with Billy, it was like, I couldn't lack, you know, like, and Billy look up at me and goes, "Yeah, he's playing really bad today. He had an argument with his wife." Mm-hmm. What? That's no excuse to play bad. You got to play bad. That's why you're there, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, you got to play great. That's why you're there.
Are all those shows like are those shows all sort of a blur? Like if you think back to like, I don't know, some of the big Billy Elton tours or Stormfront or whatever, like, do you remember specific ones or does it kind of all blend into one big
Uh,
long thing?
they kind of all blend together. The only one that I really remember was when Davy Johnstone, his son, it was a horrible thing. As a matter of fact, I did have it written down, but I kind of eliminated it. I did have a section called children, raising children while you're doing this, and there was a thing, Davy Johnstone, we were playing, I believe it was Chicago, and we all came off, and Elton went on first, and then our band went on, and then we both went on for the encores. And when we got under the stage, Davey wasn't there. Elton come running under the stage and said, "Davey's gone," and we were like, "What?" And his son unfortunately had drowned in a pool, and here he is with his wife in Chicago. She came out on the road to see him. A mishap, and his son drowns in the pool, and right in the middle of a show, he finds out about this, and it's like, he's got to get home. He's got to get home. That kind of stuff happens on the road. I remember somebody, in Russia, a guy had an epileptic fit. They were setting up the stage, and we were getting for sound check. This guy has an epileptic fit, and these people didn't know what to do. And George Sims, who was one of our background singers at the time, wonderful man, he was the one that grabbed the spoon and stuck it in the guy's mouth so he wouldn't bite his tongue off.
Oh, wow.
So that kind of stuff goes on the road, and you think about after Davy's episode, I remember calling my wife and I say, I just want you to go in the room and kiss the girls for me and tell them I love them. And she goes, "They're sleeping." I said, "I don't care. Just, you have to go do that for me, And it's like, I want to do that, but I can't because I'm away from home, you know?
Well, you had an episode of your own that you talk about in the book where you, like, it's not like Broadway, you can call in a sub. Like, you got to get out there and play. And you went out there and played, and you had like an allergic reaction to something you ate. And then next thing you know, you're in the ambulance. It's like that, you remember.
That episode in there where I ate a shrimp. All my life I've eaten seafood. You're Italians, you got the big Christmas thing. And then all of a sudden, boom, I get this allergic reaction. My lips swell up, I can't breathe, the whole thing. Billy thinks I'm having a heart attack. And they put me in the ambulance and take me away. Luckily, Charlie Morgan, who was playing for Elton at the time, he knew the show. And they went in, put him in a golf cart, took him up to the stage, didn't tell him what was going on until they pushed him on the stage. I mean, when you think about it, it's like, what are we going to do? Do we cancel and make up the show? Do we come back? No, get somebody else to play. We're not coming back here again to do this.
Right. Totally.
Like, wow. That decision you made like that. Woo.
Well, you're just doing it on the fly. It's kind of lucky that happened on a Billy Elton tour, because if it was Billy alone and there was nobody else around, then what do you do?
Right. I remember like going in the ambulance, and as the ambulance was leaving, they put me in the ambulance. Billy's doing like She's Always a Woman, and She's Got Away, all these songs that were by himself,
Right. I remember one time I was just doing a bar gig, and the guy was like, one of the guys in my band had too much to drink during the last set, and so it was my drum solo. I remember the guitar player just kept like, I'd see a head come out from the side curtains, like I've been soloing for 25 minutes over here, like I got nothing left in the tank. And but it's great that you that could be a life-threatening thing. So I guess learn the hard way. And it's funny because you're going on stage and you're like, in the book you say like, I was getting itchy, but like, I don't know why. I thought it was my towel was itching me, and next thing I know, I'm on the floor.
Yeah, it was insane. Those things happen. People that see, a lot of people are writing me about the book that have read it, and they go, "Wow, I didn't know you were in an accident." Yeah, when I was on the road with Richie Supa, I drove off the road in an ice storm. So they don't know that stuff. They just think. First of all, they think you play with Billy Joel, you're instantly a millionaire.
Right.
Not true. My ex-wives live very well, but for me.
Well, I think the thing that, I mean, at least I've always sort of been interested in, um, and especially if you're a musician and you're reading about somebody that's gotten to the top levels of playing with the biggest artists, is you're always interested. Like, okay, you got inspired, you practiced a ton, you got really good at what you did. There's a lot of commonality that goes there, and there's a lot of great players. You get into the local scene, you start playing, but really the moments where the things happen that catapult you, that when you were talking about, I'm always fascinated by the decisions that you make, because like you at one point you went down to Baltimore and you were playing down there, and then you came back and it was like there's periods of uncertainty where you could have packed it in, where you could have kept playing weddings, and that part of the story to me is very interesting. And leading up to what led to getting in with Billy, there was still a lot of uncertainty.
Well, like Don Familaro says it all the time. He talks about obstacles that you'll run into. You could stop then, or you can overcome the obstacle. And if you overcome the obstacle, you have gone that much forward. If you overcome it, you're in the next area already. It's like you've made it to the next level if you overcome that obstacle. And there's a lot of obstacles that you will run into. Right now, you're going through an obstacle right now. This virus. What are you going to do? You are doing these webcams. You're giving lessons online. That thing you did with Neil Peart, that you did the songs and you played. That's great.
That was crazy that you watched that. I was like, no, don't watch. My favorite drummer's watching. Don't watch. But thank you. Appreciate that.
So overcoming that kind of stuff. All my life I had to do that. Overcoming the guy that wanted to teach me jazz, and I wanted to learn how to play Ringo.
Right.
Who knows if I would have stayed with him, I might have been a great jazz player. But I wanted to be like Ringo. I knew in my head that that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to be in a rock band, because I loved that kind of music. That was the kind of music I loved. I was very fortunate that my mother loved Gene Krupa, because when I got the drums, she was like, "Oh, I love Gene Krupa. I used to cut school to go see him." So she loved the drums. Lucky.
Yeah, and you came full circle with thinking about so many things, because even when you talk about playing in the wedding band, which you did for a little while before things hit, we have a chapter in there about it. You come back and say later on that why I might have been not sure who wants to be in a wedding band, but then you did it and you found out these guys that you played in the wedding band, you loved playing with them and they were great players, and they just that's where they landed, but it was still a great experience. And then later on, making up drum parts like Just the Way You Are and stuff, you're like, wow, I'm actually happy I had that, because I couldn't have known that it would help me down the line.
That was a big part of my education, as far as learning how to play different, learning old ethnic beats, and you have to play Hava Nagila, and you have to play Daddy's Little Girl. You have to play all those things that most people they don't. I don't know if they do that anymore because they have DJs now that play the weddings, but I learned so much, like I say in the book, when the guy turned around and says the bride wants to start with a merengue, it was like, what the merengue?
You're like, is it time for dessert yet? Merengue?
And I thought I was a hot shot because I played with Mitch already, Mitch Ryder. So
right.
you never stop learning. It's always a great education.
Yeah. What I asked before about the concerts, obviously with the sessions, you seem to have really, because I asked you if you kept a diary earlier, and you said you did not. But your recall of the sessions is pretty crystal clear. So obviously, because you're in a moment of creation, you're super focused. You seem to really clearly remember things that Phil Ramone said to you, and
that's exactly what it is. You're so in focus of what you're doing, because when we did those takes for the songs, we were just learning the song. So you're really concentrating. I remember concentrating so hard on the song Until the Night. It's on the 52nd Street album.
Yeah.
After we played it, and I listened back, and Billy said, "Yeah, that's great. That's the take." I thought to myself, I don't know how I got through that. I don't remember anything, going through it.
Yeah.
And actually, there's a mistake. You know the thing that's saying, somebody said it, I forget who said it, but if you're going to make a mistake, play it really loud because it could be the best thing you ever do. Well, Until the Night, there's a mistake in it. And when I listen back to it, it's like, wow, it makes more sense than if I didn't make that mistake, you know?
Yeah.
So, yeah, those, you're really in an intense moment when you're doing that track. You're thinking about, okay, the tempo, you're thinking about the parts, you're thinking about how you're attacking the drums, because you're talking through your drums. That's your mouthpiece right there.
Yeah.
So you're really in an intense moment.
The records, I mean, I'm sure you've talked about this a million times, but every record really captures like a moment, like the idea of an album. There's some kind of theme that just goes through. And at 52nd Street, especially, things that you did on the previous records really crystallized in there. And even playing Zanzibar, I think you said in the book, which I didn't know, like you're on the fade out. I mean, that's fast,
Yeah.
You're like, that's about all I could do. And once the fade out was over, it's like I fell apart,
That was it. Yeah, that was it.
Yeah. And then just the whole creativity of, coming up with things, not just the way you are, but Rosalinda's Eyes and some of the tunes. Like, I was really interested when you were talking. What was the tune you said? I wasn't sure where the one was or something. So was it Get It Right the First Time or?
No. When he started Laura, I could not find the one. It starts with this piano thing. And then it just comes in with Laura, on the one, but I couldn't find the one for about 4 different takes. And finally I said, Billy, you have got to count this off for me. I can't find the one.
Really? And all that continued even through, I mean, I spent so much time listening to those records, and it's interesting for someone who's heard the records a lot and is a musician, especially, to go back and read about them. You're in the room making this stuff up.
Yeah.
And then it just it becomes a soundtrack for people's lives in ways that you could never expect, and like in my case, I remember when I was studying with Dom, I had seen, before I started taking my lesson with Dom, I saw you and Dom do a clinic together, which was, you guys were so great together because you both had your own angle, but there was a lot of commonality to it. Right. And so it's, everyone who's listening probably has these same little mini experiences. Like you're talking about Until the Night, and I can remember driving through a thunderstorm to get to a lesson with Dom on Long Island with that song playing in my car, being inspired by it. You just don't know how far it's going to go. It's like an eternal influence that you have,
Oh yeah. Well, I've got so many of those songs. I remember, I don't play double bass drum, and I think I mentioned in the song, in the book, there's 2 songs why I don't, and one of them was Parchment Farm by Cactus and Carmine Apiece playing double bass drum in that. After I heard that, it was like, what else could I do? What else could I do that this guy hasn't just done with those double bass drums?
Right.
I'm done. I'm not going to do that. Let me go a different way.
Yeah. Well, the stories you put in the book, I mean, some of the stuff that you talked about in the book where, things got really hard before you met Anna and you were in Florida, like you decided to put some pretty open personal things in there that maybe somebody who's reading like you said, oh, this book's about drums. It's actually a pretty, open story of things got pretty dark there for a while. Did you think about, I just was wondering why you thought to put some of those things in there where you're pretty honest about what happened during your divorce and even getting.
Well, yeah. Well, like looking at Billy and trying to put myself in his place, I was also, now being out of the bubble, I see things differently. When I was in the bubble, it was like, yeah, it's my way or the highway. I remember once when I was really young, I had this girlfriend, and her father didn't like me, didn't like me. And I can remember I was on the phone with him, and he was telling me that he didn't want me to go out with his daughter anymore and all this kind of stuff. And he was very angry that I was, and things that happened between me and his daughter. And I remember the singer in the band that I was in, when I was in the New Rock Workshop, he said we had to go to the gig. We were playing that night, and he said to me, well, I was talking to this man who was really upset about this, me and his daughter, our relationship. He said to me, he goes, tell him who you are. Tell him you got to go. You play in New York Workshop. Tell him you got to go. Like, whoa, dude, just because I play in a band, it doesn't make me special. Well, that's what happened when I was with Billy. It was all about me. I was the drummer in Billy Joel's band. I was that guy. Everybody admired me, and that's why when I talk about that stuff, that I looked at my marriages as something like, from another perspective, like her perspective. Like, yeah, after a while, I got tired of being like Liberty DeVitto, Billy Joel's drummer. She must have been tired of being, my wife, the wife of Billy Joel's drummer. You know what I mean? She'd go out and I would go to meet her, and all her friends would come up to me because it was like, oh, you play with Billy Joel, blah, 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 all that kind of. So yeah, I kind of looked at it that way. So yeah, I had to be really honest about it in order to be able to write it down, because I couldn't, beat around the bush. You have to be really honest. Like when I say Stevie Nicks said, we're all like butterflies, delicate butterflies. You got to be gentle with us.
Right.
Well, I come from Billy Joel's band, and we're not gentle about anything.
Right. Well, it really is a wonderful story, and it touches on, what you went through and coming out on the other side, and the fact that Billy wrote that beautiful foreword must, I think it's amazing. It must make you so happy. And he says he talks about, your guys' friendship, and he talks about that, but this is your story. It's like we intersected, but it's your story. And it just must really give you some inner peace that you guys are on good footing again,
Well, a long time ago, somebody said, I did an interview. Well, I was still playing with Billy. And he said, does Billy Joel ever say when you're good, that you're a good drummer? And I said, no, you only hear about how you play when you do something wrong. Like, oh, you messed up on that part or something like that. It's never like, that was really great what you played in that song. If you're playing on Broadway, you come out of the pit and the conductor says, he'll either say, good night, it was a good night. Maybe he'll say that. But if you made a mistake, he'll say, in that one tune, Joe, you blew it, that fill. That's when you'll hear how you played that night. You blew it in that fill.
Yeah.
Not like, Joe, that fill you played was so good, man. We're keeping it in. It's like you rarely ever hear that. You hear about when you make mistakes.
Yeah.
Because it's your job to be good. That's why you're there.
Mm-hmm. I think when you're in a band, I guess it could go a couple different ways, but you guys were together for so long, for so often, through so many sessions and so many things that you did, that like it almost becomes like, I don't know. I always thought about like if we played football or something. Like, could you imagine us all like high-fiving after every song, like when they score a touchdown? Like, we don't do that. We just kind of expect that you're gonna. Right.
I always said the same thing too. It's like, after every song, just like whacking you on the butt. That was great, Joe.
Attaboy.
No, that's what we do. We play the songs and we're done. It's like, can I have a cup of water, please?
Yeah, exactly. But at
the end of the night, I could have dumped a bucket of Gatorade over Billy's head. Yeah, done.
Right. But I'm sure, I guess depending on the situation, I mean, you brought up the Broadway thing. Yeah, you do in a situation like that, where when you're a hired gun, not to coin a phrase, but when you're a hired gun, you sort of, you might get those notes, but I think it's different because you were playing with Billy for so long, but it's definitely nice to hear, hey man, felt great tonight, or it's like any other relationship. It goes a long way.
Yeah.
To hear that stuff.
Yeah. Well, when he wrote the foreword in the book, what he says in the foreword, it was like, it's the first time I actually got like recognition for what I did. I've been approached by so many people like saying like, did Billy make everything up? What did you just go in and play the parts that Billy wanted you to play? It's like, Well, now you know. It's in the beginning of the book what I did.
Yeah.
Just in those few sentences. It's like, yeah.
Yeah.
I always said, like, Ringo was in a band, and I was in a guy. His name was on the marquee. What's the difference between what Ringo did for the Beatles than what I did with Billy Joel? It's just that Ringo gets more recognition because he was in a band called the Beatles, and
Right.
he made up his part because he was in a band. Well, the same thing happened over here, but it was called Billy Joel.
Mhm. Well, I'll just say this. So in the Lords of 52nd Street, you are one of the artists. You're one of the owners, and our mutual buddies Malcolm and Dennis and Doug, they're like side guys. They weren't in the original band, so you guys are sort of the leaders, right? So I'll just say this. So like if some and not to say, you had wonderful experiences with Billy, and then you had some that were a challenge. Somebody, like, let's say somebody has a really mean boss, and again, not saying that was Billy, but you go through a lot of crap and you don't get paid right, and the person's mean to you, and then you have a bad experience, and then like people who go through that and then they become bosses, some of them are going to be like, well, they're going to visit the same misery upon their people they hire, and some people will be like, you know what, I don't want to ever do that to somebody, So all I have to say is, Mal and Doug and Dennis, they only have beautiful things to say about you. So it's a nice thing.
It's funny. Every time, Rich is the musical director, and he locks horns a lot with Malcolm. They're both great musicians. And they're going to lock horns. And after the argument is over, I always look at Malcolm. I go, "Aren't you glad I'm in this band, Malcolm?"
It's wonderful. Those guys are great players, and it's so great that you have a Long Island gig coming up, socially distant, in the coming days.
Yeah, socially distant. We'll see how that works out. Hopefully it'll work out and we can do more of them. I know people are itching for live music. They're just itching to go out, get out of the house.
Yeah.
It's been very trying these times. Yeah.
Yeah. What we were talking about before we went live, when we were just getting set up, that both of us agreed that, I mean, I've been playing music with other people since I was 13, and now I can't. I would do it if I made $0 doing it. It's just part of who I am as a human being, and now I can't do it, and it's just stinky. Like I'm depressed because of it, and I'm ready for it to end. But
there's some Broadway conductor right now that's told his assistant, "Would you write that down that Joe would do it for nothing?"
Is that what I just said? Oh, that's the trouble with going live, So I need the 7 second
for speech,
Exactly. Well, you guys, I just want to put this back up one more time. This is the link for Hudson Music for the book if you want to read a little bit more about it, and also it's available on Amazon, and it will be available in a digital version. Liberty, you've been with Sabian as an endorser for how long now?
Oh, geez, since the Stormfront album. Sabian came. I remember Dave McAllister was with Sabian at the time, and he said, "Oh, we're coming down to New York. We'll bring you a couple of cymbals." I said, "Well, I'll be in the studio. Come by the studio. We're recording Stormfront." He came in. He had 30 cymbals with him. He goes, "We're going to leave these with you. Try them out. See what you like." I mean, Sabian has always been there for me. Always. What I love now, what I use a lot, the artisans.
Oh yeah.
Artisans. Oh my God, I just love them.
They're beautiful.
They've been a great company. They've been great. I'm with some good people. Promark Evans, and now Liberty Drums. Everybody thinks it's my company, Liberty. I'm going to change the Liberty Sabian now.
Yeah, there you go. Well, Sabian is very proud to have you as an endorser, and I'm thrilled that you got to join me for another hour for us to talk about the book. Everybody, it's Liberty, Life, Billy, and the Pursuit of Happiness. I can tell you from firsthand perspective, it's a great book. You really enjoy it. It's about drums. It's about life. It's about redemption, and it's the story of a great guy who I'm proud to call a friend and co-endorser at Sabian, and an old friend of the Sabian Education Network. If you teach drums, please go to Sabian and join so you can see all the stuff that's inside the site. Go to hudsonmusic.com, check out the book, and when Lib's back out on the road, go out and see the Lords and
come out. Yeah.
Hear him recreate all those classic parts. So, Lib, thanks a million for being here. This has been so much fun.
Well, thank you, Joe. Sorry about the little blip in the middle, but we got over it.
Just like we said, nobody died. We landed the plane.
That's
And we
right.
can high five. We're good.
Okay.
Thanks for being here, Lib. Everybody, so let's see. Dom will be back on Thursday with his session. We'll be back Friday with the roundtable. Two great teachers, Lewis Sellers from the UK and Marvin Sparks from here in the US. And then next Tuesday, actually, Rob Morgenstein will be my guest here on a webinar. And then the following Friday, Billy Cobham will be with me and Dom. So we got a lot of good stuff coming up. So tune in and buy the book. Lib, thanks again. We'll see you guys later.
All right, Joe. Thanks, man.
Have a good day. Bye-bye.
Ciao.